Department of Commerce is also overseeing several hundred open investigations into E-Verify enforcement tips, and will continue to make progress as our new partner in Washington, the Trump administration, is supportive of enforcing immigration laws. Last month, of course, we signed an MOU between the Florida Highway Patrol and ICE, which will help facilitate continued partnership as FHP fights illegal immigration and trafficking on our state's highways. Of course, earlier this week, we released our Focus on Fiscal Responsibility budget, and we do call for funding to be able to continue these missions. President Donald Trump won a resounding election victory in part by promising to effectuate the largest mass deportation program in American history. Now, that is not possible to be achieved unless states like Florida actively work to facilitate the federal operations, particularly with respect to interior enforcement. So the voters provided President Trump a mandate. I know personally, having talked to him, he's very much dedicated to fulfilling that mandate, but he's not going to be able to do it if you have states that are trying to kneecap these enforcement efforts, or even if states and localities just simply sit on their hands. So today, we're proud to be one of the first states in the nation to be requested to enter into an agreement with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to execute functions of immigration enforcement within our state. And because of this, I've directed Dave Kerner, the Florida Highway Patrol, to enter into and fulfill this agreement, and have our state troopers trained and approved by ICE to perform these immigration enforcement duties. Thanks to President Trump's strong leadership, through today's agreement, our state law enforcement officers will finally be able to cooperate with the U.S. Homeland Security Authority via ICE's 287G program. This program authorizes ICE to delegate to state and local enforcement officers the authority to perform specified immigration officer functions under the agency's direction and oversight. It also allows ICE enforcement and removal operations to partner with state and local enforcement agencies to identify and remove already incarcerated criminal aliens who are eligible for removal before they are released into our community. This agreement will give FHP expanded power and authority to interrogate any suspected alien or person believed to be an alien as to their right to be in the United States. And if they are found to be in violation of proper immigration status, they will be further detained and processed for state or federal offenses. This means that FHP state law enforcement officers will be empowered to arrest and detain aliens attempting to unlawfully enter the United States, such as through ports of entry or via waters off Florida's coastline, which is, of course, where we see a lot of the direct involvement with illegals. They can also deliver detained illegal immigrants without any unnecessary delays for examination by immigration enforcement authorities for further screening. They can also enforce felony arrests, which are cognizable under any federal law regulating the admission, exclusion, expulsion, or removal of illegal aliens. They will also have the power to serve and execute warrants of arrest for immigration violations and be authorized to administer oaths and to take and consider evidence to complete required alien processing, to include fingerprinting, photographing, and interviewing, as well as the preparation of affidavits and the taking of sworn statements for ICE supervisory review. This means that state law enforcement agencies will have the power and authority to issue immigration detainers and begin establishing records of deportable or inadmissible aliens. This process of preparing charging documents ahead of time for the review of ICE officials will allow for speeding up the deportation process and the quicker removal of dangerous illegals already detained in police custody. And once charged, state authorities will also be empowered to maintain custody of aliens arrested pursuant to immigration laws and transport such aliens to ICE-approved detention facilities instead of being forced to release them back into our communities. So this is a deputization of state enforcement entities. It will allow, of course, our ongoing operations to continue, but it will also establish a permanent path forward for dealing with illegal migrants in police custody. As I said before, now is the time with the head of steam that President Trump has being swept into office, with this as the centerpiece of his agenda, now is the final time, final opportunity to end the illegal immigration crisis in this country once and for all. We need to be willing partners with the federal administration. We complained, all these folks in Florida, particularly Republicans, complained for 4 years about Joe Biden with catch and release, with the border, with all the things they were doing, not having enough Coast Guard, which is why we had to do our operation with our vessels. People complained. Well, now we've got a partner that's committed to enforcing the law and reestablishing interior enforcement of immigration laws. So we have to step up to do our part. So this 287G agreement is the maximum amount of participation that we've been asked to do under federal law and with the Department of Homeland Security. We didn't hesitate to step up, and we will take advantage of this, and we will be strong partners. And again, the goal is we need to reestablish interior enforcement in this country. We have to fulfill the president's mission to effectuate the largest deportation program in American history. So we're stepping up. I know some other states will as well. I know some other states will fight this and do everything they can to throw up roadblocks. But we're strong partners. We understand the people spoke loud and clear, and we understand that this is important that these policies be implemented without delay. Okay, next we're going to hear from Dave Kerner, Executive Director, Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles.
Thank you, Governor. It's an honor to be here with you today, and to my partners in ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement, thank you for joining us here today. You all have been just outstanding partners since day one, going back to January. We know from a personal level, you all are burning it, the candle at both ends, both in D.C. and in the field of operation where you work. You've been nothing but professional, proactive, and you've been an excellent partner thus far. And as we transition into a more of an interior, independent-focused law enforcement model, we are excited about our partnership with ICE and DHS and their agents at HSI, Homeland Security Investigations. Just to recap, over the last 8 days, through multiple proactive and coordinated operations with ICE and HSI, 4 of which were associated with criminal gang organizations, including TDA and MS-13. Criminal histories of the illegal immigrants included aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, domestic battery, grand theft, illegal dealing in firearms, armed robbery, impersonating a law enforcement officer, fraud, and possession of controlled substances with intent to sell. Florida Highway Patrol has been proud to partner in these operations and also provide technical and operational assistance through the use of our drones, CIU, K-9 investigations, our aviation assets, and analytic support. To restate the obvious, Governor DeSantis has always been very forceful in the protection of our border and detention of illegal immigration under state law. When President Trump was inaugurated in January, the same Florida-centric posture prevailed throughout America, like it has been in Florida for many years under Governor DeSantis. Defend and deport is the focus now of law enforcement nationwide. A key weapon in this fight, which has been discussed at length, I'm sure we've all heard and read about the debate in the media and amongst the people in these United States about the use and activation of 287G authority, which provides at the discretion of the Department of Homeland Security for state and local law enforcement with sweeping and independent federal immigration law enforcement authorities. The governor has gone over these authorities, but they very briefly include the authority to interrogate any alien or person to believed to be an alien to his right to remain in the United States, and to process for immigration violations. These authorities that the governor discussed have been delegated to state and local law enforcement. Let's be clear, President Biden had a very multi-pronged approach to the open border crisis, one of that being the open border itself. One of the most effective tangents to that was canceling and not allowing the use of 287G authority with state and local law enforcement. The intention there obviously was that with an open border, the next step would be to make sure the interior did not have the resources to deport those that did not belong in the United States of America. And while the Florida Highway Patrol is maybe the first and only law enforcement agency in Florida to take this important step, we proudly do so on behalf of all state and local law enforcement in the state of Florida. History will show that this agreement will have served as a turning point in our battle to defend our homeland and to defend our state. This agreement is larger than the words that are on its paper. It serves as a symbolic confluence of promises made and promises kept by Governor DeSantis and President Trump to secure our borders and our homeland. This agreement is larger than the words on the paper because legislatures and Congress can pass laws, but those words and mandates do not have effect without brave men and women who are willing to give life to these words. This agreement represents the commitment and dedication of Florida's nearly 2,000 state troopers to continue doing just that. It is not a coincidence that Florida, under Governor DeSantis' leadership, and our state troopers enter into this agreement first in the United States after Texas. Texas, of course, being the epicenter of the open border with illegal immigration, border chaos, and cartel operations. It isn't that we earned the right to be selected by DHS to be at the top of the line for these authorities. It is because we intentionally fought to be next in line to gain these authorities. It's because we know that they will help us keep Florida safe. It is because that this is the type of leadership and direction that Governor DeSantis has provided for law enforcement during the entirety of his term as governor. This agreement is the product of law and order under Governor DeSantis. We will not be deterred, we will not be delayed, and we will not be distracted from our mission and focus to secure the state of Florida and to help build a state immigration enforcement infrastructure that will affect generations of Floridians to come. We will not be deterred by special interest who disingenuously use misguided appeals to the emotions. We will not be delayed by indecision or interference. We will not be distracted by the yelling and screaming of people who wish to do harm to the people of Florida and wish to do harm to the people of the United States of America and our values. We understand this chapter is larger than just the mission ahead. It is also about restating and uplifting the concepts of personal accountability, the right to safe and secure community, and the ultimate dismantling of terrorist cartel organizations that utilize humans as a medium of profit and despair. On behalf of the Florida Highway Patrol, we look forward to making full use of these powerful new authorities to keep Florida safe and continuing the great work that will be accomplished, working with our DHS partners in ICE and HSI and our local law enforcement partners. Governor, thank you for this opportunity.
Okay, ICE.
Good morning. On behalf of the ICE, we look forward to working with our new law enforcement partners in Florida. Thank you.
Well said. All right. And here it is. We got the agreement, ready to go. So this is, full participation from the Florida Highway Patrol and the Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles. We stand ready to help with some of our other agencies. That'll be something that DHS can determine whether they think it would be beneficial to have an FDLE, to have Fish and Wildlife, to use some of our State Guard or National Guard assets. I mean, clearly we're going to be using the State Guard to be able to help with these operations ourselves, but to the extent they want some of those involved with these authorities, we stand ready to help. This is a great start. It shows our commitment to this, and I look forward to seeing additional great things. I mean, if you think about just look what's happened in the last couple of weeks. They're busting, so ICE, as well as state partners and sometimes local partners, they're busting these Venezuelan gang members. They busted them in Central Florida, up here in North Florida, Chinese illegals down in South Florida. All this stuff is happening, and this is basically interior enforcement, street level enforcement. There's some people that say that sanctuary, that you shouldn't do anything. Now, obviously, you can't do that in Florida with our laws against that. But then there are others who say, well, until someone commits a crime and ends up in jail, then somehow no, that's too late. So obviously, if somebody's in jail, you turn them over to ICE. Of course you do that. But why would you want these gang members to just be able to run roughshod and then you only act once there's something that they've done that is rendering them to be able to be convicted of a serious felony. The standard should be much lower than that to be able to protect the people. So what we're doing here is really significant interior enforcement. And there, if you look at the numbers so far that you've seen in terms of ICE arrests on a daily basis and extrapolate that over 4 years, there needs to be an increase on that to be able to meet the goal of having this be the largest. And I think part of it is Biden decimated this stuff. I think there's some people that are kind of, quote, in the deep state who are trying to undercut it. That's why they released some of these illegals the other day. But I think that'll ramp up, and I think you're going to see that. And you look at guys like Tom Homan, he's going to get that in line. So you'll see those numbers go up, but you need the state and local partnerships to be able to ensure that you have routine enforcement of the law. So that's what we're doing today, and I'm really thankful that we were able to enter this agreement. Yes?
Governor, 2 questions real quick. And the first one is, how quickly will the provisions of this agreement start taking effect? And then the other would be, where are we at with the immigration bill?
So when you do this 287G, it involves really significant training. And so you're going to have our folks are going to go through, they're going to work with DHS, and they are going to be trained to be able to exercise these authorities. Now, they're not exclusively going to necessarily do this to the exclusion of others. I mean, for example, you have people that are on our highway patrol, keeping our streets safe. You have an illegal that's driving drunk, gets pulled over. They're now going to be trained to know, okay, doesn't have the ability to produce identification, acknowledges he's in the country illegally, then you know what to do with ICE to be able to protect the public. And one of the things I've just seen time and time again is when you have a fatal crash involving an illegal driver, a lot of times they've had previous times where they've been pulled over for erratic driving or drunk driving, and it's almost like catch and release. So you just do that. So there is going to be some ramp up time before all these authorities are exercised, but we think it's important to do this at the front end so that we're able to get the most out of it. Now, we have been working in good faith with folks in the legislature on making sure state law is reflecting the urgency of the situation, and that we'll be able to maximize support for the Trump administration's agenda along these lines. Clearly, I made my views known on what they produced in the special session last week. We know that we need to make sure that we have state and locals involved. We can't just be participating in catch and release. We need to be able to have a legal basis to hold people accountable if they enter illegally, and on and on. So I do think that the policy is probably less far apart than what it was last week, and we'll see. But ultimately, it's like, what do the voters expect us to do? And I think the voters expect us to be as strong as we can. I mean, someone was saying, oh, the governor is too hawkish or something on illegal immigration. Our voters will never say anything's too strong. They want strong. And so we got to make sure what we're doing is going to be really strong. But I do think that we are going to get there. And look, we've been willing to work in good faith. We were out last week educating people, letting them know the problems. People clearly had some issues with what was done. But then most of this week, we've just been working, trying to line up the policy, and then let's get off to the races and get the job done.